Yo, 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 what is going on, AoEM Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder. And today I thought we would do a little deep dive-ish on comparing Age of Empires, the franchise, versus Age of Empires Mobile. And then just talk about some subtle differences in an easy to understand way, so that way people can have a good overview on what the differences are and what you may come to expect with really just realistic expectations before diving into Age of Empires Mobile, as it is a decent bit different. So as always, if you enjoy the content, make sure you throw us on because it helps out a lot. So let's start off with the obvious. Let's go through kind of what Age of Empires the franchise is from 1, 2, 3, and 4, all the way up into Age of Empires Mobile, and then just talk about some of the differences. So let's go ahead and show you just some example gameplay, right? So this is something from Age of Empires 1. You can see that the Age of Empires franchise has always been a traditional RTS style, or I should say at least is what 1, 2, 3, and 4 have been. So something similar to StarCraft, to Warcraft, to Command & Conquer, Age of Mythology, for my AoEM, I guess Mythology, yeah, so my AoEM Fam, but on PC, very much like that. Again, for me, I started playing in Age of Empires 1, played all the way up through 3, did not have a chance to go and mess around with 4 yet, but then we'll show you, right? So graphics are getting a little better from 1 to 2, but you can see kind of still just similar playstyle, right? You are base building, you are resource gathering, but the biggest difference is that you are not kind of within a city. And that's something that we'll showcase off here in a little bit once we get to Age of Empires mobile gameplay, right? You are building a city, but you're doing it kind of around an open field environment. Or I guess you could say open field, open world environment. Then we get to AoE 3, and you can see similar playstyles, right? So again, graphics are getting better. We're still doing the building. In this case, you're able to see some walls there, right? They're building... looks like some of their barracks there. You could see the kind of real-time troop movement. It's not necessarily packaged into a group or a kind of small march or small legion, if you will. So there's a lot of micromanaging that goes through. And then we get to Age of Empires 4, right? And you could see some of the playstyle here. Again, right? Graphics are still just improving. They're getting better. Things are a little bit more crisp. But you still have the same traditional RTS playstyle. You're still microing individual units around, and you're still in this kind of open field, open world style map. Then we end up getting to Age of Empires Mobile. And in Age of Empires Mobile, this is not at all a traditional RTS. Even though this is just some of the gameplay, you can see once you eventually get past that and you get to your city, this is kind of post-tutorial, you are essentially building throughout. And let's see if we can go a little bit farther here. Right, and so this is kind of where you're picking your area. But anyways, now let's go in game. So if I go and show you a little bit here, right? So this is kind of what your city would look like. The biggest difference here is that, one, you are not within the open field, right? You are within a city area that you then, like, I can't even zoom out all the, like, this is me zoomed out all the way, right? So I can't easily transition from city to the open world, right? If I want to go and look at that, which is going to give you a better idea here to show you how everything is contained within the city and or your stronghold, depending on what and how you might familiarize yourself with what it's called. But then you see my citadel, you see other people's citadels, and when you're playing, again, Age of Empires, a franchise title, basically there is none of this, right? You would actually just be able to zoom in on the map and you'd see all the buildings there right in real time. Now, you can argue that would probably be somewhat difficult-ish to maybe accomplish in a mobile game, even though there are some mobile titles that are traditional RTS. There is a, oh gosh, I'm forgetting what it's called, but it's like War Number 3, like World Domination War Number 3. It is a traditional RTS thing that has 10 million downloads, and I'm butchering the name, I'm sure. But then let's get to number 2. So number 2 is that it is not necessarily as real-time as a traditional RTS would be. Yes, you have all of your buildings, your troops that are all kind of contained within your city until you send them out. So it's not as fluid and kind of free-moving as an Age of Empires or traditional RTS game that most people who've played those would come to know and probably enjoy and love. And so then you get to number 3, which is that you have to send your cities outside of the building. Right, so you have to actually send them out here, right? I can click on this area. Let me see if it'll let me do something here, right? So I could do gather. I could send a unit out, right? I would click deploy. There goes my unit. I can free move my unit if I want, right, around. So there's that option too as well. Oh gosh, I wish there, man, probably because I'm clustered over here. But like, let's say I pick something a little bit farther. Here we go. Let's give you an example here. So let's say I want to deploy But then I want to click on the move and I want to go over here, right? So you do have some real-time control over units, especially when you're battling. But again, you only have up to 5 marches. And it's, that would almost be the equivalent of kind of having up to 5 units, again, if we're just keeping things very simple for Age of Empires versus AoEM. In addition, you are essentially playing what we often refer to as a kingdom builder. So an example is that if I'm zooming all the way out to show you the entire map, you are effectively participating and competing on a world map with, hundreds to thousands of other players, with the objective being to go from the outer zone to the inner zone, capturing objectives, capturing harbors and docks, capturing passes to advance yourself. You're also fighting with other alliances and fighting with other players. There's also in-app purchases and spending, so you have to consider that too as well. Not necessarily something that you would really deal with in a typical traditional RTS game. And so you basically, where everyone is kind of on the same playing field in a traditional RTS, meaning that really the main thing that defines you is your APM, right? So your actions per minute, your kind of prep and pre-planning, your real-time adjustments that you're able to make on the flow. But everyone starts off at the same playing field, and then you can kind of just build on it with your skill. In Kingdom Builders and in Age of Empires Mobile, it very much can end up being kind of a pay-to-win approach. It doesn't mean that everyone will do that, but you will have typical people that will spend. This is just average, it's standard, it's normal. It has been this way for a while, at least for how long I've been playing Kingdom Builders, which was from 2013 for my Game of War OGs back then. Again, I didn't play a lot, only a little bit. But back then, you still had in-app purchases. And so it is just very different. Are there some RTS or real-time elements with being able to micro your troops around? Sure. Is it the same as an apples-to-apples comparison for Age of Empires, the franchise? No, not at all. Are you able to build buildings? Yes, but they are typically sometimes kind of pre-placed, even though, yes, you can manually assign where you want to place a building. It is within a confined area that you have to kind of zoom out of. Right. One of the things that I really enjoy about Call of Dragons and Rise of Kingdoms, just to kind of name two, is that you can zoom in to your city and then out of your city onto the map. You don't actually have to click a button to go out. And this is actually a little bit more like Infinity Kingdom, where you do have to do that, unless they've changed it recently. And so those are some, I think, of just the most obvious differences between the games. And you also have things like accessories in here. You have add-ons, other things that you can purchase to kind of add on to your marches. You don't really have a lot of those things in traditional RTSs. Sure, you have upgrades that you can do, and that would probably be a little bit similar to your academy in a traditional kingdom builder, where you're kind of leveling up and working on your research. But the games themselves are not really an apple to apple. It's probably more of an apple to orange or an apple to banana comparison. And I just think that it is important to kind of go over some of these things, even if we're not highlighting everything, but maybe just some of the big ticket items on what those differences are. Will you find some similarities in the art style, as I said, in some of the RTS movement, in some of the researching and getting higher tier troops? Yes, there will be some familiarity. But one of the things, and one of the other things I didn't mention, is that, and I absolutely love this, and this is something that Call of Dragons does, I think, very well ahead of the curve compared to other kingdom builders, with the exception of maybe one or two others, is they actually have ranged gameplay. In Age of Empires Mobile, and this is one of the things that, I don't want to say is a turnoff for me, but it is something that it's one of those like really big red flags for me, or just a big milestone that, like, if a new kingdom builder coming into the genre does not have true range gameplay, it just doesn't really interest me. The only thing that would probably make me play a game where I'm actively playing it would be if they're just doing everything else so well without range gameplay. And that's very much how it felt for me when I got into Infinity Kingdom. This was after playing Rock for a while. And at this time, I had never played a game that had true range PvP until I played Call of Dragons, where it does. Now, the gameplay mechanics for PvP when you're fighting in Age of Empires Mobile very much resembles more of Rise of Kingdoms, where there is no true range PvP. Even though they technically have ranged units, everyone's kind of fighting in a mosh pit, or as they would call it, a murder ball, where you're basically face to face. It's almost like two infantry that have to collide and fight together. It's the same action and animation that you would see on screen if you had two archer units, right? They would still basically have to come face to face to fight it out. You don't really kind of have that true war sense of what ranged PvP would be, even though you have ranged units. So that part has just always been a major disconnect for me, regardless of how you may feel about it. That's just my opinion. That's just my opinion and my thoughts there. Aside from that, that I think really kind of covers a lot of the general gist of what some of the major comparisons are. I'm sure there's some others that some people would mention, and please do in the comments down below if you notice any differences. And then on top of that, is that really a deal breaker for you? If you understand what you're going to be coming into and you still want to try it out, is it just, nah, that's just not for me? I've heard a lot of people basically saying that Age of Empires Mobile compared to Age of Empires the franchise is just an utter disrespect. It's an utter just cluster, if you will, and they're not a fan of it. They don't want to play it at all. And again, this isn't for everyone, but just for some of the comments and feedback I've read, maybe we'll do a deep dive on that later. Though I would love to, I'd love to hear what you guys think. If you're someone who's in the Kingdom Builder franchise and you've played Age of Empires the franchise before, you know, is this like such a bad thing for you? If you're someone who's never played a Kingdom Builder before, but you do play the Age of Empires franchise, how do you feel about this? Let me know in the comments down below, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. As always, until next time,